Look, doing what I do is frustrating sometimes. I talk about things that we finally have evidence for after suspecting it to be true. And people invariably in the comments say, who's surprised by this? I'm not shocked. We already knew this. Suspicions and probabilities are not proof. And who's surprised by this might be the least contributive comment ever made. So save me from having to navigate the waters of pet peeve and don't say that, please. But after yesterday's court appearance by David Pecker, the former publisher of the National Enquirer, we learned definitively some things that we knew to be true with big fat air quotes. What really got illuminated yesterday was just how integral to these lies and these fake news headlines Donald Trump was. For a guy who has spent his entire career in public life, especially his entire public political career, screaming fake news about legitimate news outlets while actively conspiring with a purveyor and disseminator of actual fake news. This is what we have. Donald Trump is a lying, fascistic propagandist. And he doesn't just turn his ire on Hillary Clinton during the 2016 campaign. I mean, look at some of these. This is nightmarish. I mean, obviously, Ted Cruz father linked to JFK assassination. Heidi Cruz betrayed by cheating husband. All of these headlines about Hillary Clinton having 6 months to live nearly 10 years ago, she's still alive and kicking. Fake news, fake news, fake news, fake news. Actual fake news. Encouraged by, paid for by Donald Trump. This is a news agency that wasn't just in the tank for one particular ideology. This was a news agency in the tank for one particular candidate and against all others. And I use news agency tongue-in-cheek, obviously. This is tabloid nonsense. But there's an audience for this. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on the shelves decade after decade after decade after decade. So David Pecker took the stand under oath in a criminal trial and spilled beans, gave up the game. That there were many stories of Donald Trump's sexual impropriety, his cheating on his wife, which also is no surprise. He cheated on his first wife with his second wife, and then cheated on his second wife with his third wife, and then cheated on his third wife with a multiplicity of different porn stars and pornography magazine centerfold models, I guess, among others. But what does this portend for Donald Trump? That's the question. I hope that there are people on the jury who will look at this dispassionately, who will make the correct decision relative to justice and consequence for Donald Trump. I really do hope that. I'm going to play a clip here from MSNBC where an actual legal authority, someone who understands far greater than I do, the intricacies of this, being asked about what exactly this means. Watch this and we'll talk about his conclusions on the other side.
How damaging is this? It's, we knew all of this, a lot of it over the years. It's a reminder, though, of how ugly it is and a look behind the curtain kind of the process and how the Trump campaign, according to David Pecker, worked directly with him and the National Enquirer to get these stories planted that could be damaging to his opponents in 2016. What did you hear in that testimony yesterday? Which way did it cut for you?
So I think there's both a legal aspect to that, and I think there's sort of a big picture aspect that might be viewed as sort of a political repercussions aspect. I thought what David Pecker said was truly shocking, and the only reason that I think we're maybe a little bit inured to what he had to say is because of Fox News and Dominion. If you step back, what he said was that a media outlet, even if it's considered maybe a down market media outlet, was in cahoots with one political candidate. That is what happens in Russia. That is not what is supposed to happen here. You may accuse, for instance, news outlets for having biases, but that is far different than having an explicit agreement with a candidate to only promote stories that help him, to squash stories that would hurt him, and to disseminate stories that are denigrating your political opponents. He talked about being at ground zero of that sort of fake news scheme with the former president in order to try and get him elected. Why is that legally important? Because for the state to prove its case, it needs to show that there was a crime that was either being furthered or covered up by the false business records. And that crime, among others, is state election fraud. And AMI, through the National Enquirer, was engaged in that state election fraud. So it both had a public resonance component and it had a legal component. I thought it was pretty devastating as a way to start the case.
And this is really the beginning of this case. This is the beginning of the prosecution's case. This is the first guy. Stormy Daniels hasn't appeared. Michael Cohen hasn't appeared yet. People who are going to stitch together the straight line between Donald Trump and his crimes. They're going to demonstrate his guilt. And then we will know, and we can forego saying none of this is shocking. You know, the reason I hate when people say it is because if I was to only talk about things that shocked me or that I was surprised by, there'd be nothing to talk about. Because at this point, what is shocking about Donald Trump's behavior, past or present? Really nothing. But hopefully, and really this is the wishful thinking, Jesse, before you right now, hopefully there are some modicum, some percentage, scant might it be, of Republicans whose support will evaporate off of MAGA world after hearing this. That putting the pieces together, putting two and two together of he talks about fake news all the time, and then he was in bed with a fake news guy. This is too much hypocrisy, even for me, someone who's voted for Donald Trump in the past. Hopefully that happens. I don't know. I won't hold my breath. But what do you think? I'd love to know. You can leave a comment below. We can talk about it there. You can also leave me a voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me, as always, daily at dollemore.com. I would love to hear from you. If you want to help support this work, produce what we do here, help me make these videos, click the join button below this video on YouTube to become a channel member for $2 a month. You can also go over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. That's a great way to help support the work. Actually, that's a better way. No offense, YouTube, but Patreon takes a far less cut than YouTube does, a lot less. So patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. Follow me on social media. I'm at Dollemore everywhere. I'd love to see you there, and I will see you next time. Be genuine and take care of one another.